Shut that noise up. This is a respectable neighborhood. The scream ripped through the air as a black mother, humming a song on her porch, froze mid-note. Standing before her was the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA, a woman who treated every rule like a weapon. To her, the mother was nothing but a nuisance. But what she didn't know was that in just a few days, the same voice she tried to silence would echo across millions of TV screens. Have you ever been judged by someone who had no idea who you really were? Tell us in the comments. Before we begin, hit subscribe. It's appreciated. It was a quiet, sun-soaked afternoon in a small suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where every lawn was trimmed the same and every house seemed to follow an invisible rule book. On the corner lived Maya, a young black mother raising her daughter with love, patience, and a deep joy for life. Music was her escape, her therapy, and her gift. Whether it was gospel in the kitchen or soft humming on the porch, Maya's voice was always there, weaving warmth into the fabric of her home. To most, she was just another neighbor, friendly and kind, never causing trouble. But there was one person who saw her differently, the head of the HOA. Known for her sharp tongue and tighter grip on neighborhood rules than anyone asked for, she thrived on control. To her, every smile, every laugh, every sound outside of her expectations was a disruption. And Maya's singing? She treated it like a crime. Maya never thought her simple joy of singing would stir up trouble. She had bigger dreams, dreams she rarely spoke of, standing on a real stage, sharing her voice with the world. But life had been busy, and motherhood always came first. So for now, the porch was her stage, and her daughter was her most loyal audience. What Maya didn't realize was that her peaceful afternoons would soon collide with anger, prejudice, and humiliation. The HOA queen's wrath was brewing, and Maya was about to be reminded of just how deeply bias can hide behind rules and standards. If you were Maya, just trying to live freely, what would you do when someone tried to silence your joy? Let us know in the comments. The first time it happened, Maya thought it was just a misunderstanding. She had been humming softly on her porch while watering the flowers, her daughter giggling nearby. That's when she heard it, the slam of a car door and the sharp click of heels stomping across the pavement. The HOA leader marched up, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. She didn't ask. She ordered. No singing on the porch. This is a quiet community. The words weren't just about noise. They dripped with something heavier. Something Maya had felt before, but wished wasn't true. At first, Maya tried to brush it off. She told herself it wasn't worth the fight. But days later, it happened again and again, each time louder, each time harsher. Soon, the letters started showing up in her mailbox. Official warnings about disturbing the peace. The rules didn't mention singing, but the HOA president twisted them like a weapon. The neighbors noticed too. Some turned their heads, pretending not to see the conflict. A few whispered behind curtains, shaking their heads but never stepping forward. Others silently agreed with the HOA leader, letting their stares do the talking whenever Maya stepped outside. What once felt like home began to feel like a stage where she was always on trial. Still, Maya refused to let them take her joy. She kept humming, even softer now, sometimes closing her eyes just to remember what freedom felt like. But the more she resisted, the more the attacks escalated. One afternoon, as she sang a lullaby for her daughter, the HOA president shouted from across the street, loud enough for the whole block to hear, "Why don't you take that noise back where it belongs?" The words stung like knives, and for the first time, Maya felt her throat close. She put down the watering can and went inside, tears burning her eyes. But that night, something shifted. Sitting at her kitchen table, Maya remembered the dream she had buried for years, to sing not just for herself, but for others. She thought of the times she had silenced herself to make others comfortable. She thought of her daughter watching, learning what it meant to either bow to cruelty or rise above it. The breaking point came the following week. Maya received a final letter from the HOA, threatening fines if she didn't comply with community expectations. She held the letter in her hand, her chest heavy but her spirit steadying. This wasn't just about singing anymore. This was about being told that her very existence, her joy, her culture, her identity, didn't belong. What the HOA president didn't know was that Maya had quietly signed up for a local talent showcase weeks before. It wasn't just any showcase, it was televised. And in just a few days, the voice they tried so hard to silence would not only rise again, but echo far beyond their neighborhood fences. Would Maya step into that spotlight with the same voice they tried to crush? Or would the fear of humiliation hold her back at the very last moment? The answer would shake more than just her street. The night of the showcase arrived, and the auditorium buzzed with energy. Bright lights swept across the crowd. Cameras stood ready, and the hum of expectation filled the air. Backstage, Maya clutched the microphone, her palms damp, her heart racing. For years, she had hidden her voice, shrunk herself to fit into the boxes others forced on her. Now, she stood at the edge of something bigger. A stage, a spotlight, and an audience that had no idea who she was. When her name was called, she stepped out into the glow. For a moment, time froze. The crowd stared at her, waiting. She could almost hear the echo of the HOA president's voice in her head. No singing on the porch. Take that noise back where it belongs. The words tried to chain her, to steal her breath. But then she saw her daughter in the audience, eyes wide with pride, clapping as if her mother was already a star. The music swelled. Maya closed her eyes, drew in a breath, and let it out. Her voice filled the room, soaring, powerful, raw. Every note carried years of silence, years of restraint, years of being told she didn't belong. And yet here she was, undeniable, unshakable. The audience leaned forward, mesmerized. Some clutched their chests, others wiped away tears. By the second verse, the crowd was on their feet, roaring in applause. And watching from home, thousands of miles away, but closer than ever, was the HOA president. Her smugness dissolved into shock as she recognized the woman on screen. The very same neighbor she tried to humiliate now stood before millions, celebrated for the very gift she tried to erase. The power shifted in an instant. The question was no longer whether Maya's voice belonged. It was undeniable. The real question was, what would this moment change, not just for her, but for everyone who had ever been silenced? If you were in Maya's shoes, standing in that spotlight with the world watching, how would you use your moment? Tell us what you think might happen next. When the final note rang out, the auditorium erupted. Strangers cheered her name, the judges rose to their feet, and cameras captured every tear, every smile, every second of triumph. Maya stood there, trembling not from fear, but from release. The release of years of being told to quiet down, of carrying the weight of bias disguised as rules. In that moment, she wasn't just singing. She was reclaiming space. Back in the neighborhood, the whispers began. Some neighbors who once stayed silent now knocked on her door, offering congratulations. Others avoided her gaze, embarrassed by their own silence when she was targeted. As for the HOA president, her power suddenly seemed smaller, her words emptier. The woman who screamed about disturbance had to watch as the world celebrated the very sound she tried to destroy. For Maya, the victory wasn't just in the applause. It was in showing her daughter, and anyone watching, that no voice should be silenced because of who they are or where they come from. It was in proving that the joy others try to erase can become the very light that inspires millions. But the story isn't just hers. It's a reflection of a deeper truth. How often are voices silenced, dreams dismissed, and lives constrained by prejudice hiding in plain sight? How many more times will people be told they don't belong until we finally decide that every voice matters? So I'll leave you with this. The next time someone tries to silence you, will you shrink to fit their world, or rise and let your voice be heard? Tell us in the comments.